It's Classic Country 100.1 WGLC. Good morning. Joining us from Tennessee this morning, the legendary Ronnie McDowell. He's got over a dozen top 10 hits, over 20 albums, and he's on the phone with us right now. Good morning.
Good morning, and Charles, I hope you're doing great up there in Illinois, because there is no noise in Illinois.
Exactly. Yeah, drop the S. That's important. Ronnie McDowell, a legend, done a ton of great songs, great music, collaborations, and let's go back to the beginning. When you started off in music, who did you idolize? Who were you looking up to that went, if I could trade places with somebody at the snap of my fingers, that's who I want to be?
Well, you know, Charles, it was me and everybody all over the world. Of course, it was Elvis Presley. And but Elvis was not only my influence. Hank Williams Sr. is my biggest country influence. And I could go on and on, from Roy Acuff to Jackie Wilson to Sam Cooke, the Platters, Fats Domino, Ray Price, Marty Robbins. I could go on and on. I had so many influences. When I was a little kid, I first heard Louis Armstrong, and my thing back then, still is to this day, was emulating voices. So when I heard Louis Armstrong, I said, hello, darling. So I was doing Louis Armstrong, just emulating everybody I heard, and I found that it was easy for me to emulate Elvis Presley, and so therefore, when I did American Bandstand with Dick Clark, because of a song about Elvis Presley, The King Is Gone, which was my first record, Dick Clark produced a movie starring Kurt Russell, and I was Elvis's voice. Did 38 songs in that movie, and I've been fortunate to have been Elvis's voice in like 12 movies. And, you know, I think about that a lot as the years go by. There's 8 billion people on the earth, and of all the people on the earth, I got to be Elvis Presley's voice in movies. That
is amazing. Yeah, and again, that's one of the things that really jump-started your career is that track, The King Is Gone, which came out after Elvis's passing, of course. And your influences were a lot of R&B. You know, you mentioned a lot of great R&B artists. Did you think you would have the success you did on the country charts, or were you still sort of for a while there in the mid 70s to later 70s thinking, boy, I could try to get this rock and roll thing to go?
Well, I'm going to be totally honest with you. When I got out of Vietnam, I'm a 3-term combat veteran. I actually started in Vietnam writing songs, and that was my passion. Not just the singing part, but I wanted to write songs. And as soon as I got out of the Navy, I was knocking on doors down in Nashville, because I didn't live too far from Nashville, about 30 miles, a little town called Portland, Tennessee. And me and my little brother, Ricky, we would write songs every day, play in clubs at night, and we'd run to Nashville, and I'd knock on doors. And back in those days, they had an open door policy, and they would listen to your songs. And so I got songs recorded by Roy Drusky. Matter of fact, I had Roy's follow-up, the #1 record to Look Yonder, There Comes Jody and the Kid. And I loved Roy Drusky, and I didn't even know that he had recorded my song Deep in the Heart of Dixie. And I was driving to work at a club one night and had the Grand Ole Opry on, and he started singing my song on the Opry. Still to this day, one of the biggest thrills I've ever had. And then I went on to write songs for Porter Wagner, Jeannie Shepherd, Billy Walker, the Wilburn Brothers. George Strait makes me so much money. So, George, I love you and thank you for all that money.
And that's one thing the songwriters always talk about, too. It's that you can have one hit song, and that's great. That'll keep you from begging on the corner. But you need quite the portfolio of hit songs done by a number of artists to sort of get yourself in that comfortable position. When did you decide, after your experience writing all these great songs, right before, I assume, when The King Is Gone, did you decide that maybe I could also write and then be the star myself?
Well, I'll be honest with you. August the 16th, 1977, I was driving down the road, just got through rehearsing with my band, had a gig in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I turned the radio on there in Nashville, and the DJ, it was 2:22 in the afternoon. I never will forget that, Charles, because that's my number, 222. And I looked down at the clock, and it was 2:22. So I turned the radio on, and the DJ goes, "Elvis Presley has died." So I turned it to every station. And 15 miles down the road, I know this sounds crazy, but it's the truth. Fate is a hunter. It finds you. And I want you to know, 15 miles down the road, I was barely 6 years old when I first heard him sing. And somehow I knew from that moment on it'd be a lifetime thing. Every bit of that just flowed out of my heart and soul. And it sold 1 million records in a week.
That's incredible. So inspiration can take place, either something that's devastating, at least to find out about, that a music superstar had passed away, instantly lights that candle in you and makes you go, I have to capture this. Were you worried you were going to forget it on the way down the road, or were you just repeating it over and over in your head?
I repeated that over and over. I wrote it down because, remember, I'd already been writing songs for 5 years. So what I would do, we didn't have cell phones in those days. What I would do is write it down and then just repeat it over and over. And I'll be honest with you, now that we have cell phones, you just push a button and you record it.
Makes it a lot easier, that's for sure. On the phone, Ronnie McDowell joining us from Tennessee, talking about his life, his career, his affinity for music stars of days past and days future as well. Talking about, obviously, Elvis, a big influence on you, and a lot of your early songs sort of have some of that sort of feel, if you want to call it that. I guess a swagger, as it were, for the king. Is there any song that you've done where you just really wished, boy, maybe I just wish I could have presented this song to Elvis and had him record it?
Yeah, I wrote a song called If I Could Paint the Way I Feel. And I was in a restaurant in my hometown one morning. This 80-something-year-old lady that I truly loved, she just passed away not long ago. I said, "Miss Wanda, how you feeling?" She said, "Well, the birds were singing this morning and the sun was coming through the window." She said, "Why, if I could just paint the way I feel." And I went, Did you just come up with that out of your heart?" She said, "I most certainly did." I want you to know, Charles, I wrote that, and it's still my favorite thing. And every time I perform it, I get a standing ovation. And I always go, if Elvis were around, I would literally give him this song because I think he would have had a monster with it. And because I know that he would like, if I could just paint the way I feel.
Yeah, that's an impressive little imagery right there. It really does drive things home. Speaking of painting and the like, you do a lot of non-musical medium work as well.
It's that right side of the brain, the arts and the entertainment, I say. And in 1956, in the first grade, I drew a great big old red fire engine for my first grade school teacher. Been doing it ever since. George Jones called me before he passed away. "Ronnie, would you paint a picture of me getting a DUI on my lawnmower?" And I want you to know that now that painting, one of the prints hangs right over the lawnmower in George Jones's museum that he got the DUI on. I painted Elvis Presley at 12 years old looking in the mirror in the house he was born in Tupelo. And his 1956 coolest dude on the planet was looking back at his little 12-year-old self like, yeah. You really sure we want to get into this? And that painting now hangs there where he was born in Tupelo. So, when I paint these, and by the way, my newest painting takes place in Marceline, Missouri. It's a 7-year-old Walt Disney leaning up against a big old cottonwood tree, and he called it his dreaming tree. And I'm just getting it framed as we speak, and it's my favorite thing I've ever painted in my life because not only am I a big Elvis Presley fan, but I'm a huge Walt Disney fan. It's my son, Tyler, who is a recording artist who has a monster record out right now called Come to Nashville. But anyway, he's like me. He's taken that art thing through way beyond me. So I call him the Imaginator, and I'm the painter.
That's good. And you're keeping yourself busy, too. Obviously, the last year touring's been not exactly the easiest thing to accomplish, but you've been doing things in other mediums as well, doing videos and whatnot. And I have to say that, things have changed in the music industry in the last 40 years. You've seen it all and then some. What's some advice you'd give right now to somebody who's, rolling into Nashville with a guitar on their back, trying to make their dreams come true? What's the one thing you would tell them to do differently or that they should do?
I'll tell them exactly what my mentor, my friend, and my second dad, Conway Twitty, told me. He said, son, there's no secret formula. But you've got to be in the right place at the right time. And when it comes, you got to be able to back it up. And so he always told me that. There is no secret formula. But if you have that initiative and that drive, don't give up on your dream.
That's some great advice. That's for sure. You've had a bunch of big singles, chart toppers, and the like. Is there a song that you've done that you thought, boy, this should be a number one, but the label wouldn't put it out as a single, and you've just had to play it at shows, and it bowls everyone away, and you're just like, this should have been a number one?
Well, I'll go back to If I Could Paint the Way I Feel. I'm still on Curb Records since 1984 with Mike Curb. And I told him, he and his wife, Linda, they listened to that album, and he came back and he made a statement. He said, me and my wife love If I Could Paint the Way I Feel. And I'm thinking to myself, well, put it out. But anyway, that's been a few years ago since I did that. My new album is called Country Heaven. Do you remember this song right here? If you believe in forever, then life is just a one-night stand. If there's a rock and roll heaven. Well, I changed it. Changed all the lyrics. If there's a country heaven. And so that's going to be one of the records that comes out, and that's the title of my new album, Country Heaven, with all the duets I've ever done. 2 with Jerry Lee, 2 with Conway. Wait till you hear this album. And the new song, Country Heaven, is me, Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers, and my friend John Schneider.
Oh, yeah, that's right. John Schneider, Dukes of Hazzard fame and actor.
Right.
So if you have to perform with John Schneider and record with him, does he make you slide across the hood of a car beforehand? Is that a requirement, or?
Well, you know what? I'm not even sure John's doing that these days.
That's got to be hard.
Back in those days, he was like 20 years old.
Yeah.
But, I'll be 70 next Thursday, 71 a week from Thursday. And, dadgummit, I can still do things I did when I was 18. I have no health issues whatsoever, but I take care of myself. I eat right, and I exercise, keep stress out of my life, and it's not rocket science.
Yeah. You've been on the road a lot in years past. What's the longest stretch you've ever been out on tour?
When my first record come out, The King Is Gone, I literally had to do a show at noon in some town, and by 6 o'clock had to be in another town and do another show, and I would be gone for months. My wife at the time, she said, if you don't stay home, I'm getting a divorce. And I said, well, I can't, because when you have a record that is so powerful like that, it sells 6 million records, you're totally in demand, and it's like you have to do it constantly. And I like to wore myself out when I was 26 doing that.
That's an incredible story, an incredible amount of time on the road there. On the phone, Ronnie McDowell talking about all sorts of things in his past, his artistry, his songwriting. Are you still working on songs now? Is there always a melody in your head or a set of words that you're trying to finish up?
I'm going to tell you this, Charles, and all your listeners. Now, y'all listen to this. I came up with this idea of me doing a song with the Mariachi Band. Well, the hook line is something that you know and all your listeners know. And if you don't step outside of the box in today's world, I don't have to tell you how the music industry is. You and I talked about, you mentioned it just a little while ago. Well, if you don't step out of the box and you do just a normal song, it's not going to happen. Because I don't have to tell you what goes on at radio. You know. But anyway, this song is called, and you know this phrase, "You can do it." From the movie Waterboy and Rob Schneider. Well, guess who? I sent him the song, and he gave me his total endorsement, Rob Schneider.
There you go. And his daughter also making waves in music, too. So I'm sure there's plenty of appreciation there. I'm looking forward to that. I will be right there.
When you hear "You Can Do It," it's me and a Mariachi Band.
I woke
up the other morning, and the melody was in. The intro was like going crazy in my head. And I went, sounds like a mariachi band. And so therefore the song is serious, it's sexy, but it's funny. And that's all you need.
And you heard it here first, right here on WGLC. Ronnie McDowell joining us. You've got some events coming up. You have your own sort of home base you're working out of.
Yeah, Red Bull in Springs, Tennessee, 120 years ago, in the hotel that I'm in, Dinah Shore got her start there in 1937. Woodrow Wilson came there to get in the healing waters of Red Bull in Springs, Tennessee. The Donahoe Hotel, it's beautiful. It's like going back in time. And we stream out of there every Friday and Saturday night. Last Saturday, we had 186,000 people worldwide. But here's what I want to tell you. It's the 40th anniversary of Older Women Make Better Lovers. Now, get this. A little group called the Sheltons started performing my song, Older Women. I thought it was me when I first heard it. My ear was like going crazy. I was going like, is that me? And then I went, no, that's not quite me. But these boys sound just like me. They've had 130-something million hits on TikTok with older women all over the world. And that's a third of the population of the United States. Hey, let me put that in perspective. Eminem's only had 80, and Beyonce is nowhere near that. What does that tell you?
Yeah, that's definitely, it's an impressive number, that's for sure. Yeah, 40 years since Older Women has come out, and that song, we play it a lot here on WGLC. It resonates with a lot of people. Has there ever been a moment you've been performing that song and you're just like, maybe I want to just walk that back a little bit? Maybe it's not Older Women.
Well, of course, we joke about it all the time because the young girls come up and they go, well, how about us younger women? And the guy that wrote it, Jamie O'Hara, who also wrote Wandering Eyes for me, and after I had Older Women, he came up to me and said, I got you another hit. He played it for me, and I said, no, Jamie, I don't think so. Grandpa, tell me about the good old days. Grammy went, and I turned it down. But it wasn't meant to be. It was meant for my friend Winona and Naomi to do that song. But to make a long story short, he passed away a month ago. He was my age, 70, and he never got to see what his song, Older Women, has accomplished all over the world. 130-something million views.
That is incredible. Yeah, and a great song there. Ronnie McDowell joining us on the phone from Tennessee this morning. If folks want to find out more about Ronnie McDowell, if they want to spend the night at the hotel, they want to see you perform on a Friday or a Saturday night, where do they direct their browsers, or where do they go?
All they got to do, it's simple as ABC, Ronnie McDowell Facebook, and that's it.
And just check it out right there, Ronnie McDowell on Facebook. You can see his streaming shows. You guys do a fun job, by the way. I've seen a couple of those where you guys are you're hanging out, you're playing the songs you love and talking about them too. Now, I got to ask this about Elvis. You've done a lot of things in and about Elvis. Is there something that you've heard of or know about Elvis that you have that's near and dear to your heart? Is there a favorite Elvis story or moment?
Well, you got to realize for 40 years, DJ Fontana, Scotty Moore, and the Jordanaires were my friends. And Elvis only lived to be 42 years old. So I knew George Klein, his best friend at Elvis Radio on Sirius Radio. George was one of my closest friends. And he was in the class in 1948 when a 12-year-old Elvis Presley walked in with his guitar from Tupelo, Mississippi. They moved to Memphis. Teacher said, very first day, said, Elvis, do you play that guitar? Yes, ma'am. Will you sing us a song? Elvis got up and sang Old Shep. So every time the teacher would ask Elvis to sing a song, he would sing Old Shep. So finally George Klein walked up to him and said, hey, man, don't you know another damn song? You got to love that.
Oh, that's good.
That's just one of thousands of stories that I have heard from Red West, Sonny West, my friend Jerry Schilling, and Priscilla, who is a very close friend of mine, and I did a movie with her, Elvis and Me. I did 36 songs in that movie, and she looked up at me and she goes, I cannot tell you two apart. And I said, well, you must not have known him that well then. So anyway.
He had Elvis had plenty of fun things that he did over the years. And I have to ask people who know a lot about Elvis, it's the question I ask often, what's the craziest prank you've ever heard Elvis pulling? Because he was known for doing some of these very ornate and complex pranks.
Well, one Christmas, Elvis, he loved, shooting off fireworks. So the guy, where he went to get the fireworks, so many stories. I got so many stories, it's crazy. But anyway, Elvis got those Roman candles, and he started shooting the Roman candles at Red West and all of them. And you know how the fire comes out?
Mm-hmm.
And so they all started getting these Roman candles, and they would literally have Roman candle fights. But I got to tell you this story. In 1970, Elvis got mad at Priscilla and his dad, Vernon, and he got in a taxi and went to the airport. Had no money, had nothing. But he had this purple cape, purple velvet outfit on, and a cane. He walked in, and it was like the E.F. Hutton commercial when he walked in that Memphis airport. Now, you got to remember, he hadn't done anything like this in 20-something years without people around him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he walked into that airport, and the whole airport went dead still. And he walked up to the counter, and the girl behind the counter and the guy, their mouths dropped open, and they couldn't say anything. And he goes, hey, I need a ticket to Washington, D.C. And they said, and they couldn't say anything. And he said, and by the way, I ain't got no money on me. I ain't got nothing. He said, just send a bill to Graceland. And I want you to know, they sent the bill to Graceland and let him on that plane. Hey, how many people can do that?
That's the power of Elvis.
But that's not the end of the story. He had guns in both boots. He had guns on his waist. They let him on that plane with those guns. Well, he was showing them off to a stewardess, and she went up there and said, hey, Elvis has got guns on him. So in Denver, Colorado, somebody came on there and told him he had to get off because he had guns. Well, the captain of that plane went back in there and said, Elvis, I'm your biggest fan. You can ride on this plane with your guns. They let him back on the plane.
Oh, great Elvis stories. Ronnie McDowell with us on the phone this morning on WGLC. Ronnie McDowell, you got the Duets album with a bunch of recordings, old and new, on there. A bunch of unexpected duets. If somebody gets this, the new Country Heaven album, what's one track on there that people will find like an unexpected duet? Like, wow, he's singing with this guy.
Well, there's two. There's me and Conway doing, it's going to blow people's minds. We had a hit with the up-tempo version of It's Only Make Believe. We had a top 5 record with it. Well, the other one is Jerry Lee Lewis. he and I had a hit on a song that I wrote called Never Too Old to Rock and Roll. So we come into the studio with a fifth of Jack Daniels, set it on the piano. He said, now, Killer, before we do your song, we're going to do this. He drank half of that bottle. He said, I'm ready, Killer. And he goes, Heartache number one was when you left me.
Wow.
And me and him did Heartaches by the Number. It is the most beautiful track on there, not because I'm on there, but because my hero, Jerry Lee Lewis, is singing like you would not believe on this wonderful, great Harlan Howard song. It's a classic. I wouldn't take anything for it. So that's just two jewels that are on there.
That's incredible. And again, somebody needs to find out anything about you. Check it out on Facebook. Of course, you can go to RonnieMcDowell.com and find all sorts of info there, including when the albums are going to be coming out and, of course, where you're going to be at. Ronnie McDowell, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Charles. And don't forget about You Can Do It.
we will not forget about it, and as soon as that comes out, let us know. We'd be happy to play it first. It's classic country.
I'm not only going to let you know, I'm going to send it to you next week.
That's fantastic. It's classic country. WGLC.